Good morning, Canada. Holy smokes, it's been a long time. Wow. Oh, gotta get up and stretch after that summer break. We are back. The house is resumed. Pierre Poilievre is coming out guns blazing. That's right. The NDP coalition is finito. There's potentially a bloc coalition, but Pierre says on day one, as early as possible, he's going to call for a vote of non-confidence. So we're going to see if that happens today, and we're going to see if Jagmeet Singh actually lives up to his word of being done with Justin Trudeau, done with the coalition, and if he moves forward with agreeing with that vote of non-confidence. Now, I know I had this scheduled for later on. I know that I'm almost an hour early. I get it. My bad. It's the first day back. There are some people in the house, and so I just want to get off on the right foot, get a good seat, and start looking at stuff, right? Plus, I got myself my breakfast and my coffee here, so I'm going to be taking a look at that. But you got some conservatives in the house, you got Elizabeth May in the house, you got some liberals in the house. So the dust is slowly falling off of everybody in the entire process, and we're getting ourselves a little bit more situated with this massive reality check. So everyone wants to know, is there an election that's going to be called? I don't have that answer. I'm very optimistic. I am overly optimistic. I think that an election will be called way before next year. In fact, I think an election will be called later on in this year, in 2024, before the end of the year. Now, here's my reasoning. Today, we have two massive by-elections, huge by-elections happening in Montreal. You remember the whole Toronto-St. Paul one, and Liberals are going, this is a stronghold. We're never going to lose this. We've had this place for 35 or whatever years. And then they just lost like a couple of months ago. So that same thing is happening two more times in Montreal. Now, depending on the outcome of that election, that's how we know if there's going to be a federal election happening sooner than later. The longer they wait, the Liberals wait for an election to call an election, the worse it's going to get, because fast forward 1 year from now, life isn't getting more expensive, folks. Life is only getting more expensive. Nobody's coming to save you. Inflation can come down. Interest rates can come down. You're still going to be paying similar amounts to your mortgage and your rent. You're still going to be paying the same amount, if not more, for groceries. Fuel is going to be the same amount, if not more, than where it is from right now. And people are going to be voting with their wallets when it comes time to actually vote. So it's in Justin Trudeau's best interest, if he wants any House seats, to do an election sooner than later. But we're going to get that real data in later on today or tomorrow when the results of the by-elections come out from the two that are happening in Montreal. So for that reason, along with many other reasons, that's why I think that we are heading into a potential election later on this year in 2024. But again, we're going to have to wait and see how this plays out. There's going to be a lot of moving parts today. Justin Trudeau obviously scheduled to appear in the House. Pierre Poilievre obviously. Jagmeet Singh obviously scheduled to be there. So this is going to be one hell of a reunion. We're all back. There's more interest now than ever before with Canadian politics, with the House of Commons. So of course, before we switch screens and get into the pre-debate, I do want to encourage everyone, smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. It does really help push the stream out. We got over 500 or 600 people in the live stream right now in the first few minutes. And let's try and see if we can get 400 or 500 likes on the stream. That will be absolutely incredible. Now, if you are just tuning in right now, or if you're watching the replay once it's posted later on in the evening or following day, just know that it's about 45 minutes from right now that Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre will be debating. There are people on the House floor. That's what we're going to be taking a look at right now. But if you're expecting to see Pierre and Trudeau debate right now in real time, then you're going to have to wait. But that's okay. You got time to get yourself a coffee. You got time to get yourself some breakfast. I got some granola and yogurt in here. I got myself a coffee, right, with my pimped out mug with all me stickers, which, by the way, link down in the description or the pinned comment below if you want to see that. And without further ado, folks, I did see that before I went live. In the pre-lobby, there was a membership. Somebody joined the membership program. Welcome to Canadian, eh? Steve Fancy Thank you so much, Steve. And thank you to all the channel members. And yeah, if you don't want to contribute financially, no worries, no obligations at all. Smash that like button, subscribing, and hitting that little bell icon that shows up so you can be notified. It's like an insurance thing with YouTube of upcoming videos. That's mint. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at what we're dealing with here.
Up 1 red cent. There are still some red cents in circulation. I will not give up 1 red cent to the public to have to pay them to give up my.
What do I take with my coffee?
The application is entirely in Polish as well. Our rules actually.
My wife just bought the pumpkin spice creamer.
To renounce their citizenship if they did not want it. Find it interesting.
I don't know if I should have admitted that or not.
Legislation. We also support another important part, which was in the original S245, this Senate bill that came from our colleague on the conservative side, Senator Yona Martin. So Senator Martin wanted to address 50 months of lost Canadians between.
Is this recent? This is live.
We agreed. That's why the legislation.
A20L. Polite. This is live.
Said, can't we just pass this quickly enough to look after the Section 8 lost?
Gaming Fireball. The family is awesome. Thank you for asking.
Have their citizenship restored because they missed the cutoff date. In fact, one of our members from Saskatchewan almost.
This is not pre-recorded, little Jerry.
And he only found out.
Hi, little Jerry. Not pre-recorded.
That he needed to actually apply to maintain his citizenship. So we agreed with the principle that that group of Canadians should have their citizenship.
Pumpkin spice, you are dead to me. Hey, man, my wife picked it out.
The government's proposing in here is not what I would call proper planning, proper logistical planning, to use the minister's term. And why should we believe that this minister would be capable of managing the new applications that will result of people seeking the proof of citizenship document? That's why I asked the question, how many people will this be? How much resources are needed to process these? Are they in the thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands? Are they more than that? That would be a huge burden on the department. Back in September of 2022, that minister announced that they would have all
the Forex guy. How's it going, man?
Both in public
Thanks
and
for tuning in.
Committee, that it would help reduce the backlog of immigration applications. It hasn't done that, Madam Speaker. We're still at over 2 million backlogged applications in the system, and some of the wait times are just as long, if not longer.
Let's go, folks! Over 1,000 people. We've been live for 6 minutes.
A few
Smash that like button.
Different commentators.
Let's try and get over 500 people in here, or 500 likes.
So the first one is here from Law 360 Canada. Bill C-71 depreciates Canadian citizenship by Sergio Arcaris. First reading, how the Liberals keep dropping the barriers on who can become.
He's quoting political commentators.
Liberals water down citizenship for grandkids of convenience Canadians. Government bill will allow Canadians to pass citizenship rights to kids born abroad. This is a Canadian Press article. Another one here from Brian Lilly. Trudeau Liberals making moves to cheapen Canadian citizenship.
Are you going to quote me?
Canada introduces new bill, it says, to restore citizenship by descent. And then if you go into the provisions on this substantial connection test, on which I have...
And Mistersunshinebaby said it's over.
...change to make it consecutive days, 1,095 consecutive days.
Point of order, the honourable member for Thérèse de Blainville.
This might be our first point of order today.
Is there a hard time with the interpretation?
Is it working now? Is it working now? I'll keep talking.
Oui.
Is the translation working? No?
I'm not sure, Madame Speaker. You were the one speaking in French. I thought there was a problem with the translation. That's why I was speaking in English to see if it was working in French.
Is it working now? Testing. Okay, oui.
Oui.
C'est bien. Okay, and I just want to remind the honourable member, he was reading titles and he mentioned the Prime Minister's name, so I would just ask him maybe to just say Prime Minister as opposed to the name. The honourable for Calgary Shepherd.
Oh, boo-hoo-hoo.
Speaker, forgive me for that error if I read the Prime Minister's name into the record. I don't believe I did. So, yeah, forgive me for that, Madam Speaker, and thank you for reproaching me for doing so. Peut-être je vais donner un break.
Perhaps I will give the interpreter a break and continue in French because I see that I have roughly 6 minutes left to speak about the backlog of applications at the Immigration Department.
All right, folks, there's a poll in the live chat. Do you want an election this week?
Things there at the same time. So all of the backlogged applications, well, there's more than 2 million of them. And this minister is insisting he's working on them. He spends a lot of time on Twitter, on X, battling with anonymous people and taking cheap shots at those who don't agree with him, rather than managing his department. And we see this a lot at committees, at the Immigration Committee. There are many people with this backlog of applications. Some people wait 2, 3, 4, 5 years, sometimes even, for applications that should be easy to complete in the deadlines that are given. And now we're seeing this today. We'll have a look at the refugee situation, the management of this government, and by this minister in particular. Well, what we've seen at the department today, more than 220,000.
I did see the second attempt on Trump yesterday.
Backlog, more than
Hey-o!
1,000.
Robin Stevens with the 20. With the 20 Maple Leafs.
There's a 3.5.
Hell yeah, I won an election. Let's go. Thank you so much.
Can be processed.
Robin Stevens, I appreciate that. That's going to go to the diaper fund.
Applied. So
My newborn son is a shitting machine, so thank you so
it
much.
was estimated at roughly 17,000.
He poops as much from his bum as Trudeau poops from his mouth.
17,000 for asylum seekers, 220,000 backlogged files, and more than 100,000 files that are in processing. So thousands of people are waiting, people who came to Canada under another immigration program or went through Roxham Road.
Julian Hulan,
Request or
first
refugee request.
super chat
Thought that the government would
on a stream, 699. Thank you so much.
enough resources
Hype, I appreciate
to
that.
manage these people who go through the system to make sure that their rights are not violated. And that's what the minister has said here. But now we're seeing year after year, it continues. I even have the figures. In 2022, when the minister became the Minister of Immigration, it was over 60,000 backlog. In 2023, the backlog went to over 150,000, and then in 2024, in July alone, we're over 200,000 backlogged files. And now I made an ATIP request that I received the answer to today that shows that more than 18% of people who make a request for an asylum
Beaches, not toilets.
18% of international students, they're international students, and they are now in this backlog in this department.
When the minister's talking about, he doesn't know the numbers, couldn't respond to the question, this is critical to how immigration and citizenship and the refugee system is managed in Canada. The minister doesn't know the impact of his own legislation, and that greatly worries me that he's not aware of the details. And like I've demonstrated, we Conservatives had a private member's bill that was proposed from the Senate side that offered to fix the lost Canadians for Section 8 lost Canadians, those 50 months. We were on side. We proposed substantive amendments once the scope of amendments was expanded to the substantive connection test, and to introduce what I think is the most critical requirement to have a police record check, to actually do a security record check. One amendment, I will say, that the Liberals voted against, with their allies in the NDP, voted against it at committee. And now we've seen over the last 6 to 12 months many security issues with different types of visa applicants who have been approved and come to Canada. I think the security of Canadians is incredibly important. The integrity of our citizenship system is critical. And I don't trust this minister. I don't trust the Liberal Party. I don't trust their allies in the NDP either, that they will be able to manage the new flow of applications, because they just don't know how many people will be eligible through C-71 for citizenship by descent. And as the judge found in his own ruling, the reasons for the charter non-compliance is not that there was an overall violation for it. It was because of the incompetence of the minister, the bureaucracy that was failing to provide accurate information. Madam Speaker, 50% errors in applications being processed. Dates were wrong, names were wrong, even they received a citizenship document for someone who wasn't even related to the same family. Those are serious errors in administration that the minister should have had fixed. So we will be opposing this piece of legislation. We will then propose amendments, because we're going to seek those amendments at committee to try and fix the legislation. And if we can fix it, then we'll revise our position. Because I think if we can fix it by providing the substantive connection test be 1,095 days consecutive or more days, we can come to some type of agreement on what Canadians expect. And a security record check is an absolute requirement. We have already chaos in the immigration system. The immigration minister and the government that he's part of has destroyed the consensus in Canada that immigration is a great thing. And I think it is a great thing. I'm just sad to see so many Canadians come up to me during door knocking at town halls they don't agree with anymore. So because we can't trust them with something as important as our citizenship, we're going to vote against them.
Wow.
Then comments, the honourable member for Waterloo.
There you go.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Let's drop some W's in the chat, eh, for Pierre's team. How about that?
Members' comments. And
How about that? That was awesome. Thank you, Henry Mann, for the $10 US.
We have an elected House, and so
And Mark for the $5 Canadian. I appreciate it.
We also have an independent judicial process, and that independent court ruled the Harper legislation unconstitutional on multiple grounds. And this member, rather than actually respect our independent court processes, is suggesting that this government should have been appealing that decision, rather than give Canadians their rights. This Conservative Party, today no different than under the Prime Minister Stephen Harper, believes that they can pick and choose Canadians' rights. It is wrong then, it is wrong now. I would like to understand from the member, when he challenges the substantive clause, why is it that he believes that second generation born abroad should be having to do the substantive clause, yet people born prior should not? And why does he believe he has the ability to determine who should be a Canadian and who has the right not to be a Canadian, I guess? Thank you.
Member for Calgary-Shepherd.
So to the point, I think the member was...
They don't even want borders.
...lose their citizenship through C-71. There's no new person who will lose their citizenship. As I've said before, and the member's heckling me now, if she'd allow me a chance to answer it, I'll give a thoughtful answer as best I can, Madam Speaker. Her own party voted for this legislation twice, back when it was C-37, the first generation limit.
Sorry, the honourable member is has had her opportunity to ask a question now. I just want to remind members, if they want to have other conversations, they should take it out so as not to disturb the member who has the floor. A point of order, the honourable member for Waterloo.
Madam Speaker, I know that I do sometimes speak in this House when it's not my turn, but when I do not speak and I'm given that credit, I don't appreciate it. In the case where the member referred to, it was actually not me speaking.
I'm sorry, the honourable member was having a conversation with someone across the way. And I would just ask her to step out.
It's like school all over again, like middle school.
To speak, because it does disrupt. There is an echo in the House, so we can hear what's going on at the other end. The honourable member for Calgary-Shepherd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So to continue what I was saying, when it was C-37, the first generation limit was introduced, the Liberal Party of Canada voted in favour of those changes twice. So they can't now claim that now it's a charter violation and they've kind of changed their minds. They supported it then for reasons that they had. I don't know what those are exactly, but they did twice, so it wasn't a mistake. And what I believe in this legislation, the key is, what will be the impact on our citizenship system and our immigration system, and how many people would this impact? The minister was incapable of answering, and I think it's a critical question that Canadians need to know.
Questions et commentaires. L'honorable député de Lac-Saint-Jean.
The honourable member.
Thank you, Chase, for the $10 election. Let's go. Your third super chat on the live stream. I appreciate that.
We can work well together.
And thank you, Missy, for the $5. I appreciate that. Welcome back, everybody. Holy smokes. I see lots of familiar names down in the live chat. That's awesome. We got lots of...
with some of the things.
We got lots of likes.
In his speech.
Almost at 1,000 likes on the stream.
It's
pretty good, pretty good.
Situation, and that's true. The department is probably one of of the most dysfunctional in the whole federal government. And when he talks about politicians who should stop being...
Lots of votes on the poll as well, 1,500 votes in 9 minutes.
I agree fully with him about that. I think that's a good way of looking at things, so I agree with my colleague once again on that.
By the way, every single time, I'm just going to lower their volume a second. Every single time the government does a poll or the media does a poll, it's based off of 1,000 voters, and we just destroy that within less than 10 minutes. Every single poll that gets put on this channel or on Mr. Sunshine. Just let that sink in for a second.
But there is room for improvement. So why doesn't the colleague vote for this bill to be referred to committee, and then it can be improved, and then we can vote for or against depending on whether or not the amendment's passed? The Honourable Member for Calgary-Shepherd. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague from the Bloc. We work on a committee together. Sometimes we're opposed, but it's not personal when you have a difference of opinion, a political difference, and it happens, especially when you're from different parties. So our problem is that the last time we dealt with this issue at the committee was that we proposed dozens of amendments that would have included the fact that the 1,100 and some days be counted consecutively. They would have to be consecutive, and there would have to be a security check to find out whether there were any national security issues for each application the department received. The government party, the Liberals, and the NDP voted against our amendment, and that's why it's very important. That's why we're voting against this, because we're pretty sure the same thing would happen at committee again.
Speaker, the truth of the matter is the Conservatives actually filibustered Bill S-245 for 30 hours at committee, and even after that it has gone through the committee and be referred back to the House for third reading, they traded down that bill in the order of precedence 8 times so that we will not get to debate that bill in third reading in this House and vote it on. Now, the leaders of the official opposition wrote to family members who were concerned about their rights being taken away and their constitutional rights being violated, and the official opposition leader's office responded to the family members, and I quote, "Conservatives will preserve what it means to be a citizen of this country and fundamentally what it means to be a Canadian. Please be assured we will continue to support and advocate for this legislation to reach its third reading in the House of Commons." That's in reference to Bill S-245. This is blatantly false. If that's the case, why did the member from Calgary Forest Lawn traded the bill in the order of precedence 8 times so that it cannot be in this House for third reading debate?
The honourable member for Calgary-Shepherd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's always interesting to hear the NDP complain about committee work because they always want to send things to committee. I want to do work at committee, and when it's presented to me, I do it. So we proposed well over 49 amendments, and I'm looking at them here because I have them with me. We've offered 10 times we voted with the Liberals in support of their amendments that we agreed with. So we were willing to do. I'm being heckled again.
Again, I want to remind the members if they have an opportunity.
Liberals are heckling, and NDP is heckling.
Please wait till the appropriate time.
Holy smokes.
The honourable for Calgary-Shepherd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. No, it's interesting. This is the first day back, and I think I've been heckled more as a member today than I have probably in the entire last session. And I'm not a member that does the heckling. I hope you will agree, Madam Speaker. I try to restrain myself. I'm not always perfect. I have a member next to me who sometimes does the same. So on the committee work, South Shore St. Margaret's, I know. On the amendments, we propose substantive amendments that will improve the bill.
This guy's cheeky. I like it.
Members on the committee that if we could seek consensus on our amendments, that we would vote in favor of the legislation. But we couldn't find it. Police record checks are important. Making sure a person has a substantive connection to Canada is important. At the very minimum, it should be consecutive and not just spending a few days in a year. There's also the question of how would you prove 1,095 days in the previous 40 years of your life? Say you had kids when you were starting at 40. Now, these are important administrative question. Even the minister recognized them, but he couldn't answer how many people would be impacted. And I'll just remind the NDP, they voted for C-37 with a first-generation limit back in 2008.
comments. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of the Government House Leader.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I think it's a very simple question in which many Canadians are concerned about. The Leader of the Conservative Party has no issue in terms of raising the notwithstanding clause. Now we have a former Conservative government that tried to establish the first-generation limits, and we have a Superior Court in Ontario that says it's unconstitutional.
This guy's such a weirdo.
Will the critic for immigration clear?
Hey, just a reminder, if you haven't yet already, smash that like button. We're almost at 1,000. And you might as well subscribe since you're here. It's free to do.
Notwithstanding clause in order to invoke its will in regards to Canadian citizenship. Will he give us that assurance?
The Honourable for Calgary Shepherd.
That member well knows, as the parliamentary secretary on the government side that speaks often in the House, that we will only use it on justice bills. It's not a justice bill. This is a Citizenship Act. I just want to remind the member, because again, he implied, he basically said it, that there's taking away of rights here. The Liberal Party of Canada, on February 7th, 2008, on Bill C-37, voted in favor of second reading and referred it to a committee. And on February 15th, again, the same thing, seeking unanimous consent. Not unanimous consent and a vote on division. No, unanimous consent to simply proceed with the motion on third reading and passed all the report stage and was concurred in. The Liberal Party supported the 2009 first-generation limit at the time, so they can't now back away from it. We just want legislation that is reasonable, not reckless, legislation where the numbers are provided to parliamentarians so that we know what we're voting on and we know what the impact will be on Canadian citizenship and on Canadians in general.
Resuming debate, l'honorable député de Lac-Saint-Jean.
The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Thank you, Madam Speaker. A Bloc member.
That's a big side quest.
To the Canadian Citizenship Act may seem strange to some people, but as you know, it would be easier for lost Canadians. Once Quebec is an independent country, it'll be easier for those lost Canadians to get their Quebec citizenship back. Madam Speaker.
Dude, that is frightening that that's even something he just said.
Bill S-245, which the purpose of which was to correct historic injustice by granting citizenship to Canadians whose files had fallen through the cracks. We're talking about the children of Canadian parents who were born abroad, who lost their citizenship because of changes in the federal rules or for other things that seemed unjustifiable at the time. So essentially what S-245 was about was restoring citizenship to people who lost their status because of the overly complex and often unfair provisions of previous Canadian laws. Bill C-71, the bill before us today, takes up on this, follows through on this idea. C-71 incorporates all the amendments proposed in S-245, which were designed to correct the injustices and errors of the Citizenship Act. The bill is an answer to the Ontario Superior Court of Justice ruling that the limit on the transmission of citizenship to the first generation of children of Canadians born abroad was an unconstitutional limit. So, obviously, Quebec one day will have its own citizenship legislation, but the government was then given 6 months to amend the law. C-71 was tabled as a safeguard because S-245 was unfortunately roadblock. And why was that, Madam Speaker? Well, because of partisanship on committee and elsewhere. So on that point, Madam Speaker, I'd like to repeat the following. Despite my occasional differences of opinion with my colleagues from other parties who sit here in this House, as you know, I do not typically behave in a partisan fashion. I believe that being transparent often allows me to do my job better on behalf of my constituents and Canadians. My constituents put their trust in me and elected me to work in the House of Commons with whatever parties or whatever colleagues to make progress without looking at what my colleagues' political stripes were, without allowing that to be a problem. So I'm often disappointed by all the partisanship we see here in this place. So today I'm not speaking just for Quebecers, but also for a fair few Canadians whose applications at IRCC have fallen through the cracks. As the Bloc's immigration and citizenship critic, I'm going to talk to you about Canadian citizenship because that affects everyone here. And I'm also the critic for international human rights, so there's a lot of overlap there. So more specifically today, I'm talking about C-71, an act to amend the Citizenship Act. I want to talk to you, Madam Speaker, about these people who are now known as lost Canadians, and they often lost their citizenship for reasons that were misunderstood and ridiculous. According to the department's estimates, there are still between 100 and 200 lost Canadians who still have not recovered their citizenship. So the bill corrects an oversight in the 2009 legislation, which was a missed opportunity to remove the requirement for these people to reapply to recover their citizenship when they turn 28. Madam Speaker, at the risk of spoiling the surprise, but for the sake of consistency, and this is a principle that many of my colleagues from the other parties seem to lack, I am going to state clearly that I was in favor of S-245 and I am in favor of C-71. When you think about it, this bill fits perfectly with our contemporary vision of what citizenship should be. Citizenship, once duly granted, should never be taken away from an individual unless there's an exception. So a person should never be stripped of their citizenship. Only a citizen should be able to freely renounce his or her citizenship of their own volition. Like all parties here in the House, the Bloc defends the principles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and that document stipulates that all are equal before the law. Citizenship is an egalitarian legal status given to all members of the same community. It does grant privileges, but it also creates duties. In this case, Canada, I'm sorry, I think I heard someone singing or playing an Elvis Presley song behind me. I don't know if that has anything to do. Anyway, their voice was pretty good. So, as I was saying, citizenship grants privileges, but it also imposes duties. And in this case, Canada has failed its own citizens. It's crucial to fix this problem because, as I was saying, citizenship has to be equal for everyone. It's just a question of principles. And if you look at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it's clear that this is just a question of principle. And I don't think I'm alone in thinking that it's still very unfair that in 2022, an individual can lose their citizenship for reasons that they're probably unaware of. Those provisions are outdated. They're from a distant era based on a dubious principle about what it means to be a citizen of Canada. And previous reforms didn't go far enough, and they weren't directive enough, and that's why we've had to get involved. We know that the process of recovering one's citizenship is quite complicated, far too complicated, in fact. The Department of Immigration and Refugees and Citizenship is probably the most dysfunctional department in the federal apparatus. And I think my colleagues agree with me because everyone in their riding offices has to deal with all these complex files, and they're mostly dealing with citizenship. And, Madam Speaker, you would probably agree, even though you have to remain neutral, I'm sure you get tons of these cases in your constituency office, and they're hard to solve. So the department is dysfunctional. They've got all kinds of problems. There are structural issues in that department as well. So it's already complicated enough dealing with that department. But the problem has to be solved as quickly as possible. We need to find a solution, and I think there's a pretty clear consensus around that. And certainly around C-71, and this is certainly what we see at committee.
Now, let's take a look at what's happened previously, so we can see how complicated this file is.
Oh, they swapped translators.
2009 and in 2015. 3 reforms. Now,
if you're bored, you ain't the only one. They just swapped translators.
Who've been forgotten in these
That's
reforms.
pretty funny. All in the same speech.
Children of soldiers, members of indigenous communities. People who were left behind, not supported, because the original legislation has not been properly shored up. So here's my request to my Conservative colleagues. They should arrive in committee with amendments, and we will study their amendments, as the Bloc Québécois always does, and if the amendments are good, we'll vote for them. If not, we'll vote them down. So we wish to carefully study all Conservative amendments. Now, this act to amend the Citizenship Act, and I'll be saying this for all those who are tuning in today, would ensure that citizenship by descent is conferred on all persons who were born outside Canada before the coming into force of this enactment to a parent who was a citizen. This would also confer citizenship by descent on all persons born outside Canada and allow and also in the case of adoption. So for all persons outside Canada who were adopted before the coming into force of the enactment by a parent who was a citizen, and also to support all those who lost their citizenship under former Section 8 of the Act, or because they made an application under that section that was not approved. We came close to royal assent at some point, but parliamentary obstruction and delays brought us to where we are today. So people are waiting, and they're waiting because of petty politics.
I know it's boring, folks. I know it's boring.
In the case, though, on many files and in many committees,
it'll be over soon.
The past year. And I'm not accusing one side more than the other. I've seen obstruction from the official opposition and the government. But unfortunately, behind all this obstruction are people whose needs are unmet, and they've been unmet for electoralist reasons or petty partisan politics reasons. The Bloc Québécois, though, we're here to support people. We're here to support Quebecers who care about the future of Quebec. And we're not only here for Quebecers when it comes time for elections. No, Madam Speaker, we're here for Quebecers at all times. What's good for Quebec, we vote for. What's not good for Quebec, we vote against it. C-71 would support more Quebec citizens. When I see federal parties blocking, delaying, being partisan,
I wonder if he actually is trying to filibuster for some reason.
245. When I see that, I put myself in the shoes of those who have been finally waiting for royal assent. For example, in Quebec, there's the case of Jean-François Roy. He was born abroad, although his father did his PhD in the United States, but he came back to Quebec, spent his whole life in Quebec, and was not able to automatically acquire citizenship. That type of situation leads to unnecessary stress for families who are dealing with a lack of thoroughness on the part of the federal government. This federal government is always taking too long to
I'm
address
sleepy now.
situations, especially everything
Oh my God, yeah, no doubt.
related to immigration.
If you ever have a hard time going to sleep at night, just listen to the Block Talk.
Even new programs, before they even start, there seems to be a backlog. This is so unfortunate for people. There are real people, human beings, men, women, and children who are stuck in limbo with IRCC. It should be the most humane, humanitarian department, but unfortunately, it's the least so. There are horror stories every day in immigration, and I'm the Bloc Québécois critic for immigration, so I hear these stories every day. All that to say that the bottom line is that the Bloc Québécois is here for people, first and foremost. That's why we will vote for C-71 in principle. We will study it thoroughly as necessary. We will thoroughly review and consider all amendments tabled. That's what we're here for, and that's what we were elected for. We do have differences of opinion here, and this comes as no surprise to anyone. The Bloc Québécois does want an independent Quebec. We will succeed one day. Everyone who works with us here in Ottawa, they know that we are independentists, that we want independence, and they know that eventually Quebec will become a country.
Holy smokes.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. And I do think that we do need to put it into perspective, as the member made reference to, is that the people that it actually affects. There are many individuals in the different regions of the country that are, in fact, being challenged in their ability to get their citizenship recognized. And whether it's Senate legislation or now government legislation, that it is imperative that we try to see the legislation at least get to the next step. And I'm wondering if the member can provide his thoughts in regards to, by advocating getting it out of second reading and going into committee, will at least be able to advance it. Conservatives say that they have amendments, and it would be welcome to see the type of amendments that they would have. And maybe we can come up with some sort of unanimous support in getting the legislation through. His thoughts on that.
The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean.
No. You asked him another question.
It occurs, Madam Speaker, but right now, I believe that my colleague heard my speech, summarized it into one question, and asked it to me. His question is exactly what I said in my speech, so we agree. The Bloc Québécois supports S-71 in principle, just like we supported C-71, just like we supported S-245. And the Conservatives say that they'll be tabling common sense amendments. Well, if they're so common sense, then we'll support them. I don't think C-71 is a bill on which we should have partisan issues. This is not the type of issue where we should act silly or engage in politicking.
All right, drop some L's in the chat for the Bloc. This is horrible. This is beyond repair.
Address it through legislation, and that is the most essential part of the work of parliamentarians, is it not, Madam Speaker? The Honourable Member for Calgary-Shepherd. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Here's my question. In committee, if this bill makes it to committee, would the Bloc Québécois be ready to support an amendment making it such that it would be mandatory to have a criminal record check for every citizenship by descent application? The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Well, I will look into that. I will carefully consider that amendment. But for there to be such an amendment in committee, we need to vote for the bill in principle so that it can be studied in committee. Thus, I suggest that my Conservatives colleagues join us in voting for the bill on principle to send it to committee, and then I'm sure we'll be able to find common ground on which we all agree.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I want to thank my colleague for his collaboration and cooperation at committee on S-245. I was delighted to work with him and was delighted he supported the NDP amendments as well, because that is the right thing to do, to restore the rights of Canadians, the rights that the Conservative took away. Now, I just want to ask the member, he might not have been elected at that time, neither was I, but to my understanding and to the knowledge of Don Chapman, who is really an extremely knowledgeable guy about the Lost Canadian file. When the Harper government brought in Bill C-37, he actually put forward an edict for all the parties that if they did not support it in its entirety, that they would actually take away the bill. And so that meant that the Conservative put in the poison pill in that bill with the first generation cutoff rule. And so would the member agree that that is the wrong thing to do on an issue as important as people's basic fundamental rights?
The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was not an MP at that time, but the Bloc Québécois member for Vaudreuil-Dorion worked with Mr. Chapman and knows him well and worked with him on the file. It's a very important file. In the Bloc Québécois, we have a lot of expertise when it comes to Canadian citizenship because knowing about citizenship will help us when we eventually implement Québécois citizenship. I don't want to get into
For their
that.
own
My
country,
colleague
the
will
country of
understand
Quebec.
that. For those who are tuning into debate, they can see that the Bloc Québécois members are the only adults in the room. Now, I'm not targeting anyone. I'm not pointing a finger.
They want to run away from home. What do you mean they're the only adults in the room?
Everyone needs to contribute for us to work as a team. So I think that we should work together to send this to committee. There are already 3 parties which have stated that they will vote for this on principle. We will also be able to study Conservative amendments in committee. The Bloc Québécois, as we've said, when we study a bill, we don't do so through an electoralist lens. We do so for the good of Quebecers. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank my colleague for his speech and for his intelligent, open-minded, and constructive attitude. He mentioned the possibility of Quebec
Just kissing each other's butts.
But in the meantime, would he not agree that the entire process of immigration and citizenship, here we're debating C-71, which would fix some issues, but would he not agree that all immigration files should be thoroughly reviewed? That way we could all participate, study matters thoroughly and wisely. And as he said, this would be good practice for us for a future Quebec citizenship. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. C-71 is a very good step in the right direction
Goodness, I'm so bored.
flagrant injustice. C-71 is a good start. C-71 could also serve as a guidebook to us in Quebec for a future Quebec citizenship because it would really set out and establish clearly what it means to be a citizen of a country, what the definition is of that here. So this warrants consideration and teamwork. C-71, as we've said, is a step in the right direction. Many people want this matter resolved. It's been going on for way too long. The Bloc Québécois will work to correct this injustice.
The honourable member for Waterloo.
Donc moi j'ai apprécié beaucoup le discours.
Oh, my
I
goodness.
very much appreciated the member's speech.
Un débat qui
Today's debate Today's debate gives me the impression that we would consider Conservative amendments in committee. The Bloc also has its opinions, which we would debate in committee. We can see that the Bloc Québécois will be supporting this bill. Here's my question to the member. In his view, is it important to vote for this bill so that we can debate it in committee, so that we can hear from expert witnesses, ask questions of expert witnesses? So would now be the time to put the question right now so that we can move forward on this file? Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Well, very quickly, Madam Speaker. Yes, I do, on the whole, agree with what the member has just suggested. Thank you. Questions and comments?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. I wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to emphasize that, achieving one's citizenship is a very significant fashion, as I have had opportunities, no doubt others have, to witness the swearing in of citizenships. And often we should not be taking it for granted. And one of the things that's quite upsetting, and I made reference to it in the question I asked to the Conservatives, is the idea that the Conservative Party feels very easy and relaxed in terms of using the notwithstanding clause. You have a superior decision made from the province of Ontario that says the first generation issue that the Harper government brought in is in fact unconstitutional. Can I get the Bloc's perspective in regards to having the Citizenship Act in compliance with the Constitution?
The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Well, they're bringing up the notwithstanding clause, Madam Speaker.
Holy smokes, man.
This current legislature, the atmosphere is a bit odd because this question that I was just asked does not really relate to my speech. And in my speech, I said that in C71, in studying it, we shouldn't be slinging mud at one another, that we should work together. There seems to be a general broad consensus for C71. But then he asked me a question about my speech, but all he was trying to do was sling mud at the official opposition. Let's not start with that. It's only Monday. It's the beginning of the session. Could we please be responsible parliamentarians who represent the people of our ridings? Can we represent people responsibly without trying to set parliamentary traps and engage in politicking, please, Madam Speaker?
Before I go to resuming debate, there seems to be a lot of conversations happening. I know members are piling in for question period, but I ask them to please do that very quietly to allow the debate to continue. The Honourable Member for Vancouver East, I will have to...
We're going to be starting soon.
About 4 minutes. The Honourable Member.
Well, thank you very much,
I see Brock.
Speaker.
Brock was there.
I'm very happy to enter into this debate on Bill C-71 because the House is going to be getting ready for statements and question period. I will be interrupted with my speech. So I'm going to actually put a few things on the public record to the members' point from the bloc that this is not about partisanship. But I think what is important, though, is that we actually put on the public record the history of what's happened with respect to lost Canadians. Members will know that 15 years ago, the Conservatives brought in Bill C-37, an act that was supposed to fix a lot of the lost Canadian issues. Now, in that, it did fix some of those issues. But in that process, the Conservative also put in a poison pill in the bill. And that is to say that on the first generation cutoff rule, deeming those whose second generation born abroad would not be able to confer their citizenship or receive their citizenship from their parents, that was incorporated in Bill C-37. At the time, I wasn't here, but those who watched that debate saw what happened, and the Harper government was clear to say, unless Bill C-37 passed in its entirety, or the bill would die, that they would actually get rid of it and kill it. That is information from Don Chapman, who is the king of experts on lost Canadian issues, because he's dedicated his life to addressing this injustice.
So interesting. Anyways, moving on.
Brings to this floor by sharing with me about what happened. That is why the NDP and the Liberals had to vote for it, because we had no choice. Because if it didn't, what would it mean? Because it would mean this. Thousands upon thousands of Canadian World War II vets and tens of thousands of Canadian war brides and their children would have gone to their graves.
Anyone in the live chat even care what she has to say?
From their own country. A 20-year-old war bride in 1946
to be honest, I don't.
Would today be
I'm over it. Let's move on with statements by members.
And their World War II soldier.
Shut her up. Somebody shut her up.
If we hadn't accepted the first generation
grab her piece of paper
limit under C-37, all these folks would have died without citizenship, all because Harper would have killed Bill C-37. That is the reality, and that's why people were jammed to do that. Now, despite that, the critic for the NDP at the time, Olivia Chow, put on the public record and said this: we could get this bill done very quickly and accommodate this element by doing something very simple, just by amending subclause 2.2, or actually taking it out of the bill, because right now it limits citizenship to the first generation born to or adopted by Canadian parents. The NDP tried to raise the issue.
Wow. Really?
Said that we should get rid of first generation born rule that the Conservatives brought in, but that was not allowed to take place because it was the poison pill that the Conservative put in place. Otherwise, they would have taken away all of those rights for war veterans and the war brides. That is the reason, and that's the history. Is this partisan politics? No, but it is an important part of the history to know what happened and where the Lost Canadian issue stemmed from. Why we're here?
Whoa.
The Superior Court have ruled.
Wow.
Constitutional to take away those rights.
You don't say.
I want to remind, I want to remind members, first of all, the honourable member will have 16 minutes the next time this matter is before the House.
Let's go. She's done talking.
That we are going into statements. And I would just ask members to please have conversations on.
Her speech was so important that I don't remember a single thing she's even said.
The honourable member Kingston and the Islands.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to reflect on the end of an era for local television and radio in Kingston. CKWS turned global. Radio stations have been news outlets. They have been a trusted friend, a reliable source of information, and valued part of our daily lives. I want to say thank you to the dedicated professionals who have worked tirelessly to bring us the news, weather, and stories that matter the most. People like Bill Hutchins, Bill Welichka, Julie Brown, Bill Hall, Doug Jeffries, and so many more. These are the trusted voices that have made a lasting impact. To all the reporters, anchors, producers... Drop an L in the chat for Marky Mark here. Let's see how many L's we can give him, because we know when he sits down, he's going to be checking his phone at the House of Canada stream. So drop some L's for him. Hi, Mark. And information. Hi, Mark. That you fostered for decades. Thank you.
Again, there's quite a bit of a buzz, so I would ask members to please have conversations on the outside if they're not interested in listening to the statements. The honourable member for Battleford's Lloydminster.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of the NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs are up, crime's up, time's up. Hard work should always be rewarded, but life has never been so hard for Canadians. Workers can't afford to put gas in their tanks to get to work. Moms and dads are struggling to put food on the table, and a generation of Canadians has lost hope in the dream.
Let's go. Let's go.
Fortunately, there is hope on the horizon.
Can we get some W's in the chat now the Conservatives are up? And let's try and get to 2,000 likes, folks. We got over 3,000 members in here.
Turn the hurt that this Prime Minister has.
So if you haven't yet, smash that like button.
So that hard work is rewarded. Food is affordable, neighborhoods are safe, and every Canadian has a fair shot at a good life. Mr. Speaker, it's time for a carbon tax election.
Yeah. We might see that today.
Madam Speaker, I'm deeply concerned by violence targeting the religious minorities, including Hindus, Buddhists, and Christians in Bangladesh. Every time there's instability in Bangladesh, religious minorities, particularly Hindus, face the brunt. The share of religious minorities in the population of Bangladesh has significantly decreased since it achieved its independence in 1971. From 23.1%,
thank you, baby elephant,
about 20% Hindus, it has now come down to just 9.6%, including about 8.
English subtitles. Yeah, don't get me started.
Families in Bangladesh concerned about the security and safety of their families, their temples.
Oh my God, I'm gonna start crying. That's funny.
They will be holding a rally on Parliament till next Monday, September 23rd, to highlight the
chat. Come on, chat.
They'll be joined by Canadian Buddhists and Christians who have
question period hasn't even started. Come on, chat.
The honourable member for Rivière du Nord.
Oh my God.
Mr. Speaker, a big patriot has just left us. Marcel Tessier, who marked decades of Quebecers' lives, passed away recently. He sang the opera brilliantly, and we often heard him on TV, and the luckiest of us had him as a teacher. Anyone who knew him was suspended to his every word, hung to his every word. He was a grand historian, and he knew how to teach. He said that if Quebecers knew their own history better, Quebec would be an independent and free country for quite some time. He was a passionate storyteller. We will miss you, Marcel. Rest in peace.
There's Greg Fergus.
The honourable member. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
It's nice to see familiar faces, but at the same time, it's not nice to see some familiar faces. You know what I'm saying?
Orleans, an excellent.
Feels like it's a reunion day, but there's a lot of people that are participating in the reunion that we don't like.
For their guidance and support in their success.
I don't know if I'm the only one that feels that way, but I would assume that other people would share that same feeling.
Residents, from my community at my annual corn roast and barbecue. I'd like to underscore the top-rate collaboration of the Orleans Lions Club, which year after year ensures the smooth running of the cooking station. And it was also a privilege to welcome 21 young cadets from the Phoenix 632 Squadron of the Royal Air Force Cadets who came to lend us a hand at the event. Thank you.
The honourable member from Dolphins.
I'm going to top up my coffee. I'll be right back, folks.
Speaker, after 9 years of the NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, time is up.
That's right.
But now the Prime Minister has doubled down on his carbon tax by appointing Mark Carney as his new de facto finance minister. As a jet-setting member of the global elite, Carbon Tax Carney has spent his entire career promoting a costly carbon tax. He supports the Prime Minister's plan to quadruple the carbon tax and oppose removing the carbon tax from home heating. Carbon Tax Carney has no issue lecturing working-class Canadians while he wines and dines with his global elite. He has so many conflicts of interest that the Prime Minister is shielding him from Canadian disclosure laws. Carney remains beholden to his corporate boards, meaning his interests of Canadians are an afterthought. Conservatives are demanding Mark Carney be sworn in as public office holder, so he follows Canada's conflict of interest laws. No Liberal is above the law.
Hear, hear, hear. The honourable member from Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to honour the memory of Senator Joseph Day, who sadly passed away earlier this year. Joe Day was a distinguished lawyer and a remarkable and much-loved parliamentarian. Representing the province of New Brunswick for almost 2 decades, he held an exceptional 18-year tenure with the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, culminating in his election as the Assembly's Vice President from 2016 to 2018.
We're going to be starting here soon, folks. Grab yourself a coffee, get yourself situated.
He worked tirelessly to advance and promote the mandate of the Defence and Security Committee. As the committee's general rapporteur, Joe was a leading voice for NATO to strengthen its deterrence and defence position after Russia's illegal...
If you haven't yet already, I'd appreciate it if you guys smash that like button and subscribe. We're almost at 2,000 likes.
...in the NATO lines, but also for his achievements, as well as his kindness and sunny character. Joe, thank you for your leadership, your contributions to Canada, and your commitment to peace and security in the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Mississauga, Erin Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am honoured to be back in the House after a productive summer in my riding of Mississauga, Erin Mills. Over the summer, I attended over 100 events, met with 180 organizations and businesses from my riding to discuss the issues most important to them. We welcomed thousands of residents to my 7th annual Mississauga Erin Mills Barbecue. Our Women and Youth Council hosted a health symposium as well as a mental health panel to highlight important issues impacting the well-being of youth and women in our community. I met with hundreds of residents to talk about important issues such as housing and grocery prices. I hosted a roundtable discussion with Canadian Palestinians to listen and better understand their lived experiences with anti-Palestinian racism. Mr. Speaker, we have considerable work ahead of us on many important issues, and I'm looking forward to working with all members in this House to deliver for Canadians. Thank you.
Who's excited? Man.
The honourable member from Cumberland.
I think we're all at the edge of our seat.
After 9 years of NDP Liberals, taxes up, costs up, crimes up, and time is up. Criminal gangs active in illegal lobster poaching have been terrorizing communities in Nova Scotia, and the incompetent Minister of Fisheries and Oceans has been nowhere to be found. This is dereliction of duty by the same minister that ignored the expert advice and reopened the northern cod fishery ahead of time. We are a nation of laws, founded under the principles of peace, order, and good government. But right now, Atlantic Canada's fishing communities don't have any of those blessings, and they feel completely abandoned by Ottawa. The president of the Unified Fisheries Conservation Alliance has described the situation as total lawlessness. The lobster fishers in Pugwash have reached out to me directly and told me just how concerned they are about the lack of enforcement. Unchecked illegal poaching must be stopped, and help is on the way. Common sense Conservatives will end lawlessness in the fishing industry and will restore order and safety to Atlantic Canada.
Yeah. Thanks for joining the memberships, folks. Let's get, are you guys even live in the chat now? Let's get some W's going. Let's get some movement here. We're all a little rusty.
Of Massa Gino Amini. We commemorate her life, her story.
Let's see some W's in the chat. Let's try and get a little hyped here.
The Iranian people's persistent call to end all form of persecution, violence against women and all civilians. Canada stands with the Iranian protesting for a better future where human rights are respected. The concern must be addressed and their right to protest must be protected. Mr. Speaker, the fight for human rights and freedom, as well as for justice and accountability, has not stopped. That is why Canada has led the international effort to respond to the Iranian regime's actions, including listing the RRGC as a terrorist entity and recently changing the designation day of the Iranian regime to June 23rd, 2003.
Am I frozen?
It's seniors officials.
Where's the W's? Oh shit, they're there. Wow.
We'll
there they
never
are.
forget the story of Massa Gino Amini.
Okay. You guys are awake. I see it.
Women in Iran and around the world. Zan, Zendigi, Azadi, women, life, freedom. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Montmagny-Lisle, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 9 years of this Liberal government has meant 9 years of inflationary spending. 9 long years during which the Liberals, with the support of the Bloc, have made Quebecers pay dearly. You could even say that there's no Bloc Québécois party in Parliament, only the Bloc Liberal coalition. It was this Bloc Liberal coalition that voted for the largest expansion of the federal government ever recorded. The Bloc Liberal coalition that voted
to man, I'm excited.
Bureaucracy with 100,000 more public servants. The Bloc Liberal coalition that voted for $500 billion in budgetary appropriations to
I don't know if it's good to be have this much anticipation for politicians in general, but I'm ignoring that intrusive thought, and I'm letting it happen, and I am freaking excited for this. Holy smokes, man.
Or rather,
I feel like the whole country's just waiting in anticipation for Pierre and Trudeau today.
Prime Minister. Fortunately, common sense Conservatives are hearing them loud and clear, and we're going to cut taxes, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop crime.
There we go.
The honourable member from Kildonan, St. Paul.
After 9 years of the NDP...
Hey, welcome back!
Are up, crime's up, and time's up, Mr. Speaker. The carbon tax...
She had a baby.
The cost of food...
She's back.
...and home heating. And as a result, we're seeing record numbers of working Canadian families relying on food banks. And to make matters worse, the NDP Liberal government planned to quadruple the carbon tax. And they continue to vote for soft on crime policy. Since 2015, violent crime in Winnipeg is up 67%. Car thefts up 63%. Homicides up 100%. And gun crime up a whopping 177%, Mr. Speaker.
Drop some W's
record.
For Raquel. Come on, man. Look at that. She's bringing the heat.
So today in Elmwood Transcona, the choice for Winnipeggers is simple. A vote for the NDP is a vote for the Liberals and their soft on crime carbon tax agenda. Only a common sense Conservative government will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and
stop the crime. Yeah! Welcome back, Miss Raquel Dancho.
The honourable member for Ottawa-Vanier.
Rise today to honour Marlene Catterall, trailblazing role model for Canadian women who served on Ottawa City Council and as Member of Parliament for 17 years. An accomplished parliamentarian, Marlene preferred to be known as a community activist. She fought for justice, lobbying for the release of constituent Maher Arar from Syrian prison. As Canada's first female chief government whip, she broke barriers in this chamber. Marlene
negotiated the unanimous vote to establish the Women Are Persons model.
Hi, Jagmeet. Hello, Jagmeet. I got to say hi to Jagmeet. I forgot that he watches this stream. Remember? In his breakup video with Trudeau, he used my footage. Hi, Jagmeet. Hi, Jagmeet's team.
CMFO and the Maison de la Francophonie of Ottawa in recognition of her.
Everybody say hi to Jagmeet. Everybody say wave hi. Say hi to Jagmeet. Put hi Jagmeet in the chat. We know he's watching.
Who knew her?
Holy smokes.
The honourable member from Edmonton.
Oh, man, we're so close.
Democrats believe in taking care of each other.
I think she's the last one.
That health care should be universally, accessibly, and publicly delivered. We believe that every Canadian should be able to afford a decent home and a fridge full of groceries. However, many Canadians are losing hope right now. New Democrats want to restore that hope and make life more affordable for everyone. But here's the truth. The Conservatives will steamroll the middle class if they are given the chance. When they were in power, they cut health care by more than $30 billion. Wait times ballooned and Canadians suffered. They cut pensions, forcing people to work longer and live on less in retirement. Conservatives have said that they will cut health care, dental care, pharmacare, child care, employment insurance. Even our Canadian pension plan is at risk, and all this to give a break to their corporate friends. NDP here in the House, we're here working for Canadians.
Holy smokes, chat is alive and well.
The Honourable
Oh man, let's go. I want to do the announcement.
Mr. Speaker, so we can hear.
I'm getting blue-balled right now.
I would like the sound in the House to be lowered, please. Order, please.
What a weird power trip. I'm talking and I want everybody to be quiet.
Today, I would like to pay tribute to Benoit Roy, defender of Quebec and the French language, who was awarded the Chevalier de l'Ordre de la Pléiade of the Francophonie on 8th July. Benoit champions Quebec's sovereignty and the French language. Since 1974, he has dedicated himself to defending Quebec culture.
If you haven't yet already, I'd really encourage you guys to smash that like button. We're almost at 2K. 2K likes.
French in Quebec. In a few months' time, we'll be celebrating the organization's 25th anniversary, and by then, Benoit will have been presented 63 awards. Rather, 117 awards over this period. And he organized a gala dinner to celebrate National Patriots' Day, paying tribute to those who worked for Quebec's political freedom and independence. His unwavering commitment has made him a key player in the promotion of Quebec's identity and of the French-speaking world. Congratulations, Benoit. Thank you for everything you do for my riding and for Quebec.
The honourable member from Battle Creek Crowfoot. Battle River Crowfoot, excuse.
Thank you. Taxes up, costs up, crimes up, times up. Over the summer, I spoke to thousands of Canadians where I heard heartbreaking stories of how they are hurting after 9 years of the NDP Liberals. It was 2 years ago that the sellout and cowardly leader of the NDP signed on to a costly coalition with that Liberal Prime Minister. But a couple of weeks ago, he tried to convince people that he had a spine, and with much bravado, he tore up the agreement. But following his media stunt, he refuses to state whether the NDP will vote to force a carbon tax election. The sellout NDP leader didn't get the bump in the polls he was hoping for, I guess, and went on to even suggest that after voting for the carbon tax 24 times, he has somehow found the light and now will oppose it, but with a caveat. Details to come after he qualifies for his pension. Canadians need a carbon tax election now to decide between a costly coalition of the NDP Liberals or common sense Conservatives who will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime.
There you go.
The honourable member from Winnipeg South Centre.
Mr. Speaker, recently Manitobans were shocked and saddened by the sudden passing of Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs Grand Chief Kathy Merrick. Grand Chief Merrick was more than a leader. She was a beacon of strength, wisdom, and compassion. Her dedication to the AMC was not merely a role she undertook, but a calling she embraced with unwavering commitment. Her leadership was characterized by a deep understanding of the challenges faced by First Nations people and a relentless pursuit of justice and equality. Her impacts extend beyond her professional.
I believe we're going to hear about the
was a loving daughter, sister, wife, mother, aunt, cousin, grandmother, a supportive friend, and a trusted mentor to many. Her legacy will live on through the lives she touched and the progress she championed. As we reflect on her life, let us remember her resilience in the face of adversity, tireless work on behalf of First Nations people, and her unwavering commitment to building a better future. Mr. Speaker, her contributions have paved the way for many, and her spirit will continue to inspire us as we move forward on the journey towards truth and reconciliation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Let's go, everybody. Drop some W's in the chat. We're about to see Pierre.
Colleagues, I know you're looking forward to this.
Hell yeah! And thousands at home. Shout out to the translators, for the House of Canada, House of Commons. They do a really good job. It ain't easy to translate French to English like that on the spot on the live feed. When there's 4,000 people watching House of Canada live.
That the clerk of the House has received from the Chief Electoral Officer a certificate of election and return of Mr. Stewart, member for the Electoral District of Toronto, St. Paul.
Yeah! Liberal stronghold! Hey, Liberal stronghold! Look at that Liberal stronghold! Look at that! Liberal stronghold. As if. Ain't no such thing as a liberal stronghold right now. W's, folks. W's in the chat. Come on. We know MPs in the House right now are watching this feed.
Mr. Speaker, it is an honor to present to you Don Stewart, the member for the Electoral District of Toronto St. Paul's. He has taken the oath, signed the roll, and now claims the right to take his seat.
New guy! We got a new guy! Look at that! Woohoo! That's the Liberal stronghold right there. Conservative MP taking that spot. Welcome aboard, new guy. Hell yeah. Don't forget, there's 2 more by-elections happening today. There's 2 more. They muted the feed, by the way. They muted the feed. There's 2 more by-elections happening today, folks. 2 more massive Liberal strongholds. Huge Liberal strongholds that are happening today. It's done. It's done with the Liberals. They're fed up. People want Conservatives. You saw the empire topple with Toronto St. Paul, and they just walked them in. There you go. He's getting sworn in.
I'm really happy it's the best place you'll ever be.
The best place you'll ever be. Yeah, it's going to be a Conservative majority. It's going to be a zoo in there. Of course it's the best place you'll ever be. Woo! Oh, man.
Questions.
Oral questions. Questions. Oh, God. Honorable Leader of the Opposition, soon to be next Prime Minister of Canada, Pierre Poilievre. Let's go.
For 9 years, the Liberal bloc has put a tax on your food, causing your groceries to be more expensive, doubled the cost of housing, and doubled the national debt. With the full support of the bloc has voted over 200 times to keep this party and this government in power. And now they want to increase your taxes even more. Isn't it time for you to have the chance to choose a new common sense government that will cut taxes, build housing, fix the budget, and stop crime? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, if the opposition leader had spent any time speaking to Canadians this summer, he would realize that Canadians want solutions. They want solutions to the challenges they face as families with fighting climate change. They want to know how Canada is going to position itself for the economy of the future. But the opposition leader is only interested in his own interests, not Canadians' interests. Meanwhile, we on the other side of the house continue to work to deliver the goods to Canadians to build a stronger economy for all. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, what Quebecers see is the biggest expansion of the federal government in Canadian history, a centralizing government and a costly one at that. And all this with the full support of the Bloc, which has voted some 200 times for inflationary spending, centralizing spending, and bureaucracy, which totals $500 billion. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers have the right to have a common-sense government that will cut taxes, build housing, fix the budget, and stop crime. Now. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. What we're doing, Mr. Speaker, when we announced in Quebec a significant investment in Telesat to create good jobs.
Oh, yeah, right.
Which will have an impact on productivity and national security in Canada and all around the world. The Conservative response was to call their friend Elon Musk to say, no, you can't send those jobs here to Canada. Instead, you should be giving your money to American billionaires. We find that completely far-fetched. We are here.
The majority owners in Telesat shares are American companies, by the way.
After 9 years of NDP Liberals, taxes up, costs up, crimes up, time's up. And now he wants a 300% carbon tax hike, all the way up to 61 cents a litre. Why not let Canadians choose a common-sense Conservative government that will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime now?
Damn, dude. A beacon of hope.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. The opposition has spent any time listening to Canadians over the summer, he would have heard that they need solutions. They need answers to the challenges they're facing. That's not what he's offering. Indeed, he doesn't care about Canadians. He just cares about himself and his own political interests. We're going to keep focused on doing the things that he refuses to do, whether it's him voting against dental care, whether it's him voting against child care, whether it's him voting against a national school food program. We're going to still deliver the things that matter to Canadians, like food in kids' bellies, childcare spaces, and supports for seniors to go to the dentist, many of them first time in years.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Children are hungrier than ever after 9 years of the NDP Liberals. In fact, 25% of them are not getting enough food, and we now know why. A carbon tax fraud has been perpetrated by this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, who kept secret Environment Canada documents that showed that the carbon tax was blowing a $25 billion hole in our economy. Our economy per capita is smaller today than it was 10 years ago, during which time the American economy has grown by 19%. Instead of a reckless plan to hike the tax to 61 cents a litre, why not allow Canadians to vote to axe the tax?
There you go. Let Canadians decide.
Minister. Here's a newsflash for the Conservative leader. Climate change costs money. And what would cost the most money to Canadians at all is his do-nothing climate plan. Newsflash. When the Toronto subway gets flooded, it costs money. Newsflash. When forest fires hit communities across this country...
Hey, he learned a new word.
Money to rebuild.
Newsflash.
You have droughts that hit farmers and agriculturists across this country. It costs money.
Newsflash.
Money is putting money in 8 out of 10 of the money of Canadians' pockets with the Canada carbon rebate to support their families and fight climate change.
He's like the pig from Looney Tunes. All right, let's go, Pierre.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister just proved my point. His tax doesn't stop floods, fires, or droughts. All it does is create more poverty. This also from a high-flying, high-taxing, high-carbon hypocrite who flew 92,000 kilometers in a fuel-guzzling, tax-funded private jet while he taxes single moms and seniors for heating their homes. Now, carbon tax Carney wants him to put the tax back on home heating oil. Will he reject carbon tax Carney and instead allow Canadians to choose to axe the tax?
Yeah.
Just want to remind all members, and to do so early, to be very mindful of their language that they use in referring to other members in this House. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative leader doesn't believe in climate change, and that's why he has a do-nothing plan to fight climate change. It would cost Canadians money and challenge the future we're building for our kids. Our plan, with the Canada Carbon Rebate, puts more dollars in 8 out of 10 Canadians' pockets right across the country, supports the middle class and people working hard to join it, while delivering the kinds of investments that are going to grow our economy and reduce emissions at the same time. This is a responsible climate plan that fights climate change and supports Canadians. He wants to do nothing. He wants to hurt Canadians.
Nah, dude, he wants to give Canadians more money in their pockets.
The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, allow me first of all to wish a warm welcome to everyone. Welcome back here, all of us. It's a by-election in La Salle et Mar Verdun today, and I'd like the Prime Minister to explain to retired people aged 65 to 74 in that riding why their pension checks are 10% lower than retirees who are 75 and over. This is a horrible form of discrimination, and they're entitled to know why.
There you go. Call an election.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Pierre won't discriminate.
Mr. Speaker, we did recognize that seniors 75 and over have higher costs and often lower savings. So we've increased investments for them. But what I don't really understand, Mr. Speaker, is that the Bloc, which claims to be concerned about people of that age group, those 65 and over, why did they vote against dental care for those tens of thousands of seniors all across Canada who've recently been able to get dental care paid by the federal government, and the Bloc voted against it? They don't care about seniors in the Bloc. Once again, I'd like members to stick to language that's much more clearly parliamentary. The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, it's easy to get the Prime Minister confused. I'm talking about a jurisdiction that is exclusive to Quebec, that the federal government has encroached upon. He also said that Anglophones in Quebec couldn't get health care services in English the same as Francophones. That's false. So I would ask him explicitly to recognize that he misled Montreal, Quebec, and La Salle et Mar Verdun's Anglophones when he said that Anglophones don't get the same health care services as Francophones. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. He claims to speak for the government of Quebec, but the government of Quebec itself admitted that they were going to issue an order to clarify and explain that they were not going after Anglophones. We're still waiting for that explanation, but if the government of Quebec can recognize that, then I think the Bloc should be able to acknowledge it too. So for seniors over 65 who got dental care thanks to us, they don't care about them. They just want their jurisdiction, but we're providing something that Quebec was not providing, and so the federal government stepped up and paid for that so that those seniors could get dental care that their own government, provincial government, wasn't providing them, and the Bloc voted against that. The honourable member for New Westminster.
Sounds like the Bloc might want to have an election.
The housing crisis in La Salle et Mar Verdun, like everywhere else in Quebec, continues to worsen under the Liberals. Hundreds of people are now homeless. This is the direct result of the Liberals and Conservatives making rules so rich investors get richer while tenants pay more. Together, the Liberals and Conservatives have lost over 1 million affordable housing units. People deserve better. When will the Prime Minister stop working for real estate giants and start protecting tenants at last. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. What's been done in recent years is I've had a lot of good conversations with the NDP leader and colleagues in the NDP, and I know that they're truly concerned about Canadians' situations and they want to help. But what's obvious is that they have no idea how to go about it. And as soon as the Conservatives attack them a little bit, they hide and run. Yes, it's difficult to deliver progressive things in this country, but we as a government are doing just that. And with or without the NDP, we will continue to deliver for people all across the country. We will provide housing, services.
Call an election. Let's get it done.
From New Westminster, Burnaby.
No excuses. No one in Canada should be homeless, period. Full stop. And no one in Canada should pay out of pocket to get the health care they need. The Liberals are letting people be charged membership fees.
Jagmeet's not there. He's at the Rolex dealership right now getting a new watch. $50,000.
Conservatives want people to pay for health care in Elmwood, Transcona, and right across this country. Liberals let you down on health care, you pay. Conservative cut health care, you pay. When will Liberals start making people pay for health care that should be free?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as everyone in here knows, over the past couple of years, I've had lots of great conversations with the NDP, and I know they actually do care about Canadians and about delivering for them. Unfortunately, they have no idea how to do it, and as soon as hard things got hard, they turned tail and ran, Mr. Speaker. Wanted to avoid the criticisms of the mean old Conservatives and tried to save themselves. Well, the reality, Mr. Speaker, is we know that hard things are hard. We're going to continue to deliver progressive solutions for Canadians. Because
look at Harry Potter on the left.
For Canadians and not hide from the Conservatives.
The Honourable Member from Thornhill.
The Prime Minister gave the Finance Minister a real vote of confidence last week as he outsourced the job that she was supposed to have been doing for 4 years and gave it to a man who's not even in the Liberal caucus. First, the Prime Minister tried to fire her in the newspaper, and now she's being shoved aside for Carbon Tax Carney, a man focused on his own profits and his own corporate interests, who was brought in to serve as the de facto Finance Minister. She's lost her job responsibilities. She's lost her credibility. How long will the Phantom Finance Minister endure this humiliation?
Damn, dude. Conservatives are good with this. Drop some W's for Melissa, by the way. Welcome back, Melissa.
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker. I'm missing shit. Unfortunately, either is that fart-smelling face of yours. Oh, my God.
Prefer to focus on personal mudslinging and attacks rather than to actually talk about the economy. They don't want to talk about inflation because it's been down in the target range for 7 months in a row. They don't want to talk about interest rates down 3 times in a row. All they can do is insult people.
Dude, there is something wrong with her.
Thornhill.
Who's going to tell her? She just got a demotion, and he hired a guy that's not even elected to do her job. Does anyone believe that Carbon Tax Carney is going to tell the Prime Minister how to help a family afford groceries as the loudest cheerleader for carbon taxes ever? If the Finance Minister isn't completely humiliated by now, can she explain why Canadians should trust a man who is the #1 supporter of higher taxes to do her job?
W's for Melissa. Let's go.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, we are seeing more clearly than ever that the only thing the Conservatives know how to do is to level personal attacks and personal denigration. They do not care about Canadians, and now they're scared about the facts of our economy. So let me tell you some facts. Inflation in the target range for 7 months in a row. Interest rates down 3 times in a row, and the IMF says we'll have the strongest economic growth in the G7.
Nope.
The Honourable Member from Calgary, Nose Hill.
This summer, after
after he argued that Atlantic Canadian home heating oil should be carbon taxed, carbon tax-loving Mark Carney spent a lovely summer of whimsy having champers at the Royal Box at Wimbledon and rubbing shoulders at a swish cocktail party with a wealthy CEO who yesterday coincidentally got millions of dollars of tax dollars. This is not someone who's in touch with the struggle of average Canadians, but neither is the Prime Minister. Did he push aside his now phantom female cabinet minister because carbon tax-loving Mark Carney could get him into fancier parties than she can?
Holy shit! Drop some W's!
Mr. Speaker, look, I first want to say it's great to be back in this place.
She had a kid too, by the way, for anyone who cares.
People on this side, I can't say that I missed all of you that much, but I did miss you a little bit. But what I do want to say is that it's just typical from the Conservatives that when they have an eminent Canadian, someone who has given so much to this country, who doesn't agree with their economic vision or their vision at all in Canada, they attack them. Mr. Speaker, we need to be better than this. We need to support Canadians and be grateful when they put forward for public service. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Shut the hell up. Call an election.
Member from Calgary, Nose Hill.
They're not even letting her answer the question. When so many people are struggling to make ends meet and pleading for someone to fix the budget, I'm struggling to find a reason why the Prime Minister would put an out-of-touch elitist, active archpriest of carbon price profiteering who has massive conflicts of interest in charge of the federal budget while shunting aside his female cabinet minister. What a feminist.
Holy shit.
All phantom finance minister have to get approval for Canada's fall economic statement from carbon tax, conflict of interest, Mark Carney.
Yeah. Damn. Drop some W's again, folks. Conservatives are cooking.
Finance.
Mr. Speaker.
I'm actually really glad to welcome back to the QP roster the member for Calgary Nose Hill. We haven't heard her raising her voice for a while. Mr. Speaker, I'm not going anywhere, but I am not surprised to see the Conservatives continue cartoonish personal attacks. And that is because they are afraid to reveal to Canadians their plan for austerity and cuts, because they know that's not what Canadians want.
Ooh, didn't even address anything about Mark Carney.
From Peterborough, Kawartha.
Mr. Speaker, we have two sources saying the view of some senior officials within the PMO, including Chief of Staff Katie Telford, that the Phantom Finance Minister has been ineffective in selling the government's economic policies. So, it's curious because we have a fake feminist Prime Minister who says he's all for women. Taxes are up, costs are up, the economy's in the toilet, and this carbon tax Mark Carney is now going to quadruple the carbon tax on all home heating across Canada. Yeah. So why is this phantom finance minister okay with being publicly humiliated by this fake feminist Prime Minister?
Wow!
Deputy Prime Minister.
Bring in the heat.
Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker,
the
only people being humiliated today are Conservative MPs who have to listen to their colleagues wallow in the mud of personal character assignation. But what we are focused on is representing and working for Canadians. That's why, Mr. Speaker, the real news today is 30-year mortgage amortization.
Disgusting.
For all first-time home buyers. That's
disgusting. That's absolutely disgusting. Here, go get more debt.
Well, member from Peterborough, Kawartha.
Mr. Speaker, it is not Conservatives saying that. It's the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Katie Telford, for the record. And so I guess the question is before this phantom finance minister. She simply has two choices. Is she going to join the graveyard of liberal female ministers under this fake feminist prime minister? Or, like Jody Wilson-Raybould, Jane Philpott, or will she continue to be publicly humiliated?
Wow! Drop some W's.
Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker.
What we are seeing today is the Conservatives running away from the reality about the Canadian economy. They are running away from the fact that inflation is in the Bank of Canada's target range for 7 months in a row. They are running away from interest rates down 3 times in a row, the first time in the G7, and wages outpacing inflation for 18 months. The only thing the Conservatives know how to do is traffic in cheap insults. Canadians are a lot better than that.
That's it, eh? That's all she's got.
L'honorable député de Shefford.
The honourable member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, there's a lot of talk these days about elections. Some are doing their calculations, but for the Bloc, it's simple. Our confidence is in Quebecers, not the Liberals, not the Conservatives, Quebecers. And Quebecers are telling us they're concerned about the cost of living and seniors' standard of living. That's why our priority is to increase old age security for people aged 65 to 74. They're being unfairly discriminated against, and it's got to stop. It's as simple as that. Will the government listen to this simple request from Quebecers? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the next time the Bloc supports seniors will be the first time in the history of this Parliament. Let's look at the facts. When we restored the retirement age to 65, what did the Bloc do? They voted against. When we increased the GIS, helping millions, thousands of seniors in Quebec, the Bloc voted against that too. And when we provided dental care to seniors, the Bloc voted against that too. They're doing nothing for seniors.
Hey, if you haven't yet already, I'd really appreciate it if you guys smash that like button on the stream and subscribe to the channel.
Bloc's request is simple. Our bill, C319, would increase the OAS for 65 to 74-year-olds by 10%. It's so simple and so sensible that in committee, all parties supported our bill. All that's missing is the government's support. So since all parties agreed to increase OAS for 65 to 75-year-olds by 10%, will the government do the only right thing and give C319 a royal recommendation? The Honourable Minister of Labour. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to welcome the Bloc with their support for seniors, because this is exactly what this government is all about. Look at what we've done, whether it was the grocery rebate, whether it was increasing the GIS, whether it was the many things we've done, including dental care this year, which is being delivered all across Quebec, including my colleague opposite's riding, which she voted against. Mr. Speaker, we are there for seniors. The honourable member for Shefford. I toured all over Quebec this summer to talk about C319. Everyone gets that it's unfair for seniors under 75 to get 10% less than the rest. Everyone gets that. Unlike the Liberals, a grocery bill doesn't discriminate based on age. That's why this is the Bloc's top priority. Quebecers understand the problem. They understand our approach. Will the Liberals finally get it too and give C319 a royal recommendation? The Honourable Minister of Labour. Mr. Speaker, what the Bloc doesn't seem to get is that actions count and votes here in the House count. Voting against dental care for seniors, voting against bringing the retirement age back down to 65, that's what Quebecers have seen from the Bloc. The Government of Canada will always be there to take care of Quebecers, and the Bloc has never shown themselves to be there to protect Canadians' pensions, whether it's in Quebec or elsewhere. This is our first day back. I'd like everyone to remain polite. The honourable member for Chalabour-Haut-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc voted for the largest expansion of the federal government ever. More spending than ever, more public servants than ever, more scandals than ever, with Quebecers' money. How did the Prime Minister convince the Bloc to support the most expensive and centralizing government in Canadian history? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, our government...
We know the translator watches.
...progressive. Our government is proud of our action on the climate. We're proud of our support for childcare, and our government is very proud of our support for families. And, Mr. Speaker, we know that those progressive values are the same values that Quebecers hold dear. And that is why we are supporting Quebec. We're supporting them when it comes to the climate, to childcare, and we're proud to be doing it here too. The honourable member for Chalabour-Haut-Saint-Charles. The Bloc claims to defend Quebecers' interests. Is it in Quebecers' interest to support the most expensive government in Canadian history? Is it in Quebecers' interest to raise their taxes, to strengthen the federal government, which is constantly encroaching on Quebec's jurisdiction? It's clear the Bloc is only defending the Prime Minister's interests. What did the Prime Minister offer the Bloc leader to get him to agree to support this centralizing government? The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans. Mr. Speaker, look at the Conservatives. They have no shame in claiming that they want to march towards prosperity when all they can do is take the path of austerity. Canadians know that all the Conservatives can do is chop, 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 Mr. Speaker. They cut investments for ports, for small craft. They made cuts to science, to families, to child care services. They cut for dental care, and that is the path the Conservatives will take.
She's been cooped up at home with all her cats. She forgot how to talk to people. That's okay.
The honourable member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, one coalition appears to have ended, but another remains, the Bloc Liberal coalition, responsible for $500 billion in inflationary centralizing spending. Under this coalition, the public service grew by more than 100,000 public servants. That's the most expensive government in Canadian history. But wait times and service standards have never been worse. My constituents and staff in Beauce have to wait hours to get answers. What did the Prime Minister promise the Bloc leader to keep him in power? The most expensive and centralizing government in Canadian history. The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This summer I had the opportunity to speak to many of my colleagues in the Liberal caucus who met in my riding, and we talked about the cuts the Conservatives made when they were in power. So I took them to the experimental farm because they don't believe in science, so they made cuts to agricultural research. I took them to show a cultural centre that we built because all they did was make cuts to culture. Quebecers remember that when the Conservatives were in office, all they could do is make cuts. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
Mr. Speaker, because of Liberal inaction, people in Nanaimo Ladysmith are forced to cut back on groceries to keep
call an election
prices. Meanwhile, the Conservatives continue to pad their pockets with donations from the same CEOs who are gouging Canadians. Over the summer, people shared with me that they are exhausted and just aren't able to make ends meet. Why are the Liberals taking a page out of the Conservative playbook by putting corporate greed ahead of everyday people?
Shameful!
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, excuse me.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. It's a shame that the NDP's recent hard right turn has taken them down the wrong path. It's too bad that they've caved to the Conservative pressure. We worked collaboratively for many months to introduce numerous rounds of changes to Canada's competition laws, which I think are significant signs of progress that will amount to better prices, more options for Canadians. That includes more powers to the Competition Bureau to crack down on anti-competitive behavior. Those changes are going to make a real difference in Canada's economy.
Here, here.
The honourable member from North Island, Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, the poorest seniors are receiving hundreds of dollars less every year because Liberal policies created another GIS clawback. This summer, I heard from seniors and their loved ones. They are drowning. Conservatives cut pensions and increase the retirement age. And Liberals are punishing the poorest seniors. Canadians never win with Liberals or Conservatives. When will the clawbacks end?
Here, here.
The Honourable Minister of Labour.
As the member well knows, not only does the GIS or CPP or the OAS go up, but it goes up now quarterly, Mr. Speaker. In fact, there are no clawbacks when the member knows full well that we've expanded, actually, the amount of money a senior on GIS might make before any money is clawed back. We've expanded that substantially. The member should know that.
The Honourable Member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Mr. Speaker, members on this side of the House have spent their summers listening to Canadians. We heard about grandparents and children getting access to the Canadian Dental Care Plan. And we heard about the need for a government that's focused on building more homes, faster, growing our economy, and making life cost less. What we've seen from Conservatives do all summer is bet against our economy and bet against Canadians for their own political gain. Can the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, share with us the good economic news we saw over the summer and what this means for Canadians and for their families?
Good question.
The answer's still no.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank my colleague for his excellent question and for his very hard work. COVID and its economic aftermath have been hard for Canadians, and that's why it's important to recognize the good news we've had this summer. Canada was the first G7 country to lower interest rates, easing the burden on homeowners. And inflation has now been within the Bank of Canada's target range for 7 months. Wages have outpaced inflation for 18 months in a row. We have more work to do, and that's why we're focused on Canada and Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, I've been to Sacré-Cœur several times to meet the Boisacco Forestry Company. The employees are feeling very worried, and rightly so, because they're in danger of losing their jobs. The Environment Minister's order is a nightmare for the forestry sector. It's going to kill jobs, shut down businesses. It could even wipe out communities.
Holy smokes.
Represents 1,200 jobs in Quebec and nearly 900 million in economic benefits. Will the minister stop and think about the human beings behind his radical policies, and will he guarantee that he will not impose his order? The Honourable Environment Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm happy to be here with you today at the beginning of the session. I'd like to remind my Conservative colleague that the Government of Quebec committed in 2016, and now it's 2024, almost 2025, but the Government of Quebec committed 8 years ago to present a plan to protect the woodland caribou. They haven't done so. Recently, they signed an agreement with us, the federal government, saying that their plan would be ready in June 2023 to protect 65% of the woodland caribou habitat. They promised to do so, so they should do so if they don't want a federal order. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm curious. I'm wondering, can the minister even point to Sacré-Cœur on a map? Inflation, cost of living, interest rates, life is hard enough as it is. Now the Liberals, they just have to add another layer of stress. The Bloc Québécois supports them, and the only way to get rid of this tired old government is to replace it with a Conservative government. The Bloc voted
it's the only way.
188 times to keep the Liberals in power. Will the Bloc Liberal coalition leave forestry workers alone once and for all? The Honourable Environment and Climate Change Minister. Mr. Speaker, if only you knew how many times this summer I met with Quebecers. They find this ridiculous. It's ridiculous to talk about a Bloc Liberal coalition. Now, we work well with the Bloc Québécois, but there is no coalition. Quebecers...
That's what they said about the NDP when it was very noticeable that they were in a coalition.
They do not care at all about protecting the environment. That's apparent. They don't care about water quality, the quality of our environment, about the future we're leaving our children. We, though,
Harry
are
pot
here
smoker,
for
that's
people,
right.
for communities, and for the environment, Mr. Speaker.
That's what we call them.
After 9 years of this Liberal NDP government, taxes up, costs up, crimes up, time's up. When the Prime Minister promised to quadruple the carbon tax scam, the leader of the NDP said, yes, sir, anything for his $2.2 million pension. And now, the Canadian Truckers Alliance released a damning report. The carbon tax scam adds more than $4 billion cost to farmers, families, and food. Why don't they just call a carbon tax election now and let Canadians decide whether to quadruple or axe the tax for good?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Newsflash, Mr. Speaker. We had a carbon tax election in 2021, and the Conservative Party had a platform where they said they would put in place carbon pricing in this country. Maybe he just has to go and look back at their own platform, Mr. Speaker. Again this morning, the Parliamentary Budget Officer was in committee saying that 8 out of 10 Canadian families where carbon pricing applies get more money than what they pay in pricing, Mr. Speaker.
Not true.
Unfortunately, the Conservative Party of Canada continues to speak.
I've done dozens of polls
this issue
with 30,000 votes minimum that say 8 out of 10 Canadians pay more when they get back.
Calgary, forced long.
The PBO proved that orange jumpsuit handcuff-wearing minister is lying when he said that more Canadians pay...
W in the chat, folks. W in the chat. W in the chat. Come on. He wore an orange jumpsuit and he got handcuffed for climbing the CN Tower, for being a radical climate activist. W's in the chat. Don't you dare mute the mic. Come on. Come on, man. Come on, every freaking time. Power-hungry little man in a dress. Little man in a dress in a green chair. Are you kidding me? For crying out loud. That was good. That was really good. That didn't break no rules.
I know it's the first day back for members. We've all spent this time with our ridings. I'm going to ask the honourable member if he could rephrase this question because he knows that you can't...
I hope he says it again, word for word.
I am going to ask the honourable member to rephrase his question, to not use language which is normally considered unparliamentary. The honourable member...
Not one single sentence of that word was unparliamentary.
What this orange jumpsuit-wearing, handcuff-loving minister doesn't understand is that the PBO proved Canadians pay more into this scam than what they get back. And it's done nothing to stop a single forest fire or flood. It's a scam and nothing else. And the leader of the NDP continues to prop this carbon tax scam up so he can get his $2.2 million pension. That's why he voted in favor of it 24 times. Call a carbon tax election now so Canadians can axe the tax and kick this carbon tax costly coalition to the curb.
Let's go! W's in the chat, man, for Just Raj. That was good. He said it again. He's got the stones in the spine. What are you going to do, Speaker? Mute the mic?
It's really important for all members to choose their language and use their words judiciously in a way that is respectful.
That was the most respectful way of putting it.
Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, that kind of language from the member opposite is totally inappropriate. Canadians deserve better. But it's what
victim.
Conservative leader and his caucus who would prefer.
Outside the House, right?
Colleagues, I could not hear the Honourable Minister give her response. It's difficult for me to hear that so that I can make sure that the language is correct. The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House, please, from the top.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the language from the member opposite was completely inappropriate, and quite frankly, Canadians deserve better. But unfortunately, that's what we've come to expect from the Conservative members and their leader. And the reason why they're focusing on the price on pollution is because they want to distract Canadians from the real agenda, where they cut pensions for seniors, they cut childcare for families, they cut and defund the CBC at a time of increased disinformation. Mr. Speaker, they want to hide their real agenda from Canadians because they know that they won't like it. But, Mr. Speaker, they need to be under that scrutiny and they need to be honest with Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I mean, he was pretty honest. Orange jumpsuit wearing, handcuffed, radical climate activist minister.
Again, I'm going to ask members on all sides to please make sure that they only address the House when they have recognized by the Speaker to hold the floor.
The honourable member for Montcalm. On October 30th, Quebec
that was good. That was good.
Patients and their families. Quebec will implement its own legislation to govern advance requests for medical assistance in dying. 6 professional orders are calling on the federal government to align the criminal code with Quebec's legislation. Allow me to quote the Collège des Médecins. We deplore the fact that the federal government has not agreed to amend the criminal code to authorize this approach, which is well regulated and on which a broad consensus exists in Quebec. Will the Justice Minister finally listen to patients, doctors, and science and amend the criminal code? The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a very sensitive topic. We need to take the right amount of time. We need to study the legal implications of this matter. We also need the time to have a national, countrywide conversation. I need to discuss this with all of my provincial and territorial counterparts. We all need to discuss this and reflect because there will be many consequences, but I look forward to continuing to discuss and work with the colleague across the way. The Honourable Member for Montcalm. Yes, but since February 2023, the minister has been repeating that he's consulting the provinces, that he's thinking things over, that advance requests are complicated. While he was dithering, though, Quebecers are for it. 97% of Quebecers support this, and Quebec has passed its own legislation. Patients want it implemented, and doctors want to be able to practice with complete peace of mind. Does the minister understand that there's a difference between carefully studying an issue and dragging his feet while people suffer? The Honourable Justice Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have the utmost respect for the important critical work that Quebec has accomplished when it comes to advance requests. Canada has one and only one criminal code for good reason. Canadians deserve clarity and clear standards regarding what is criminal and what is not. So we are not yet ready to implement an exception for Quebec on this matter, but we will continue to be transparent and we will continue to work in collaboration with Quebec in determining the next steps. Thank you.
Member from Toronto, St. Paul's.
Hey, new guy! Put some W's in the chat, folks. New guy. Toronto, St. Paul, that's the Liberal stronghold.
Mr. Speaker.
Let's go.
9 years, the NDP Liberals. Taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, time's up. Just last week, we heard 1 million people in Ontario were accessing food banks. Meanwhile, the NDP leader supports the Prime Minister, keeps him in power, and supports his crushing carbon tax increases. I just finished a successful by-election campaign. Why will the NDP Liberals not let Canadians decide about the carbon tax and call a carbon tax election now?
There you go. We'll work on it, but that was good. That was a good first at-bat. Yeah, new guy. Liberal stronghold. How does it feel, Liberals? That was supposed to be your seat. Womp, womp. Womp, womp. Yeah, you see Brock smashing the table going, let's go.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to welcome my new colleague to this place. It's important, of course, to always be open and transparent with Canadians, and what we see is someone else who knows how to repeat 3-word slogans as opposed to be able to deliver for Canadians. Mr. Speaker, what the members opposite are doing are trying to evade they actually plan to deliver for Canadians. So I hope that the member opposite can be more honest and transparent with Canadians moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That's a good hope.
The honourable member from Brantford, Brant.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and now time is up. Canadians are feeling more unsafe than ever. Violent crime up 50%, sex assaults up 75%, car theft 46%, and shockingly violent gun crime over 100%. Will the Liberals finally join Conservatives in protecting Canadians and demanding jail, not bail, for repeat violent offenders?
There you go. W's for Brock, huh? Welcome back. Welcome back, Uncle Brock.
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General for Canada.
Mr. Speaker, my fundamental job is to keep Canadians safe. Here's what we've been doing in the last 12 months. We've increased...
Colleagues, I would appreciate being able to hear the Honourable member's response. The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General for Canada, from the top, please.
Mr. Speaker, my fundamental job is to keep Canadians safe. Here's what I've been doing the last 12 months. I proposed new offences for money laundering. The Conservatives voted against. I've increased the penalties for violent carjackings. The Conservatives voted against. I and my colleague, the Minister of Public Safety, have put $160 million to aid the CBSA and law enforcement in detecting and stopping car thefts. Car thefts are down 17% over the last 6 months compared to last year. There's still more work to do. We're going to continue to do that work. While the Conservatives shout slogans, we are going to keep Canadians safe.
Yeah, it obviously ain't working, buddy.
The Honourable Member from Brantford, Brant.
Simple fact is criminals have nothing to fear under the NDP Liberal legislation. Bill C-48 has done nothing to stop the crime in our communities. Instead of listening to premiers and law enforcement who have called for bail reform, the Justice Minister pretends that C-48 is a success. Mr. Speaker, it's an abject failure. When will the minister stop protecting criminals, start standing up for victims by reversing their catch and release policies?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, I spent the summer listening to victims, and what they talk to me about is intelligent policies and approaches to crime. What we did is pass in this chamber, thankfully with unanimous support, bail reform. The job is now on the provinces to ensure that bail reform bears fruit. What am I talking about, Mr. Speaker? The people that decide bail decisions are justices of the peace and primarily provincial court judges appointed at the provincial level. The people that appeal bail decisions, such as my colleague in his former capacity, are provincial crown attorneys who are under the direction of provincial premiers and provincial attorneys general. When there's not enough jail space to keep people in jail who don't deserve bail, that's a provincial responsibility.
The Honourable Member from Halifax West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. On this day, 50 years ago, 32 women across Canada took the oath to become RCMP's first female officers. Wow. They became known as Troop 17. Today, we celebrate them and all women who have taken the oath since, who selflessly serve in the RCMP to keep Canadians safe. Can the Minister of Public Safety update this House on the efforts made to encourage more women to follow in their footsteps and join the RCMP?
Amazing.
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, 50 years ago, 32 brave women took the oath to become the first female RCMP officers. Despite facing challenges and discrimination throughout their careers, the women of Troop 17 persevered and have inspired thousands of women to proudly serve in the RCMP. Today, more than 1/5 of the RCMP regular members are women, and the RCMP continues its effort to recruit even more women to join the force. I know all colleagues will join me in celebrating the women of Troop 17 and all those who proudly serve in the RCMP today. Well done.
Man. Who cares? We don't want cops being hired based off their sex.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of the NDP Liberals, taxes up, costs up, crimes up, time's up. And now foreign access to Northern Cod is up. With the backing of the 6 Liberal Newfoundland and Labrador MPs, this government broke the promise to allocate the first 115,000 tons of northern cod to the inshore harvesters, and they caved to NAFO pressure to allow foreign countries back in with 5% of the northern cod quota. So this minister, Mr. Speaker, does she work for foreign nations or does she work for Canadians?
Whoa! Holy smokes!
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government is aware of the cultural, economic, and historic importance of cod for the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. That's why, after 30 years of closure, I announced new modern fishing, which will lead to significant windfall for Newfoundland and Labrador, all while leading to well-paying jobs. Our government is committed towards sustainable, prosperous fishing that will support the generations of today and tomorrow, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member from New Brunswick Southwest.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of NDP Liberals, taxes up, costs up, crimes up, and time's up for this atrocious Liberal fisheries minister. She failed to protect one of Atlantic Canada's most important industry, the lobster fishery. In my riding, there are no DFO enforcement officers along the Canada-U.S. border. Poachers from Maine are illegally fishing lobsters in our waters. They are stealing Canada's natural resources. 60 New Brunswick fishing boats held a peaceful protest Saturday, calling on the minister to enforce the law and protect Canadian sovereignty. Will she do her job, or will the Prime Minister fire her?
There you go, man.
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
I don't think a single person would miss her as an MP, if I'm being honest.
Mr. Speaker, our DFO officers do a very difficult job. They do it every day. But the opposition keeps saying that there's no enforcement on our waters. Well, that is completely false. And moreover, Mr. Speaker, it's irresponsible. This work is ongoing.
The Honourable Member from New Brunswick Southwest had the opportunity to ask his question. I'm going to ask him to please hold his comments and let the Minister respond to his question. And I'm certain he has an opportunity to ask questions again on the same issue. Then I have
the Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans, and with 12 seconds remaining. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If he can shout, I can shout. We are deploying the necessary additional resources in order to protect our oceans and our resources, Mr. Speaker.
the Honourable Member from South Shore, St. Margaret's.
After 9 years of NDP Liberals, taxes, costs, and crime are up. And fisheries officers are refusing to patrol the Maritimes because these Liberals will not let them enforce the law. Poachers are attacking with shotguns and knives. Meanwhile, Liberal Fisheries Minister number 6 lives in denial, refusing to listen to the union. 20,000 pounds of lobster a day are poached through the Saulnier Wharf alone. Americans are fishing in Canadian waters. Will the Prime Minister listen to fishermen for a change, call an election so Conservatives can fix the fishery?
There you go.
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans. Thank
she's going to quit later this year, probably before the end of 2024.
I encourage my colleagues to listen to the English interpretation of what I'm about to say in French, Mr. Speaker. What's being suggested is totally false. DFO enforcement agents are doing their job, Mr. Speaker. And on this side of the House, we're not putting on a show. We're working because this is an important matter. This pertains to safety, the safety of our waters and on our waters, and what he's suggesting is totally irresponsible. We will continue to do the necessary work in the right way. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Again, I'll ask members who ask questions to please ask their question and then listen to the response and then take up the question again when their turn has been offered. The Honourable Member from Richmond Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This summer, I was pleased to join the Minister of Health to sign 2 new healthcare agreements with British Columbia. These agreements will enhance wages for personal support workers and improve accessibility and affordability to medication across BC. Canadians believe in our healthcare system, and we must continue to build up a healthcare system for all generations. Could the Minister of Health please share with us how these agreements will support healthcare in BC?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for Richmond for his
Boo.
in health and to make sure
Boo.
the health system in the world. And
jumping out in the chat. Boo.
Columbia with an agreement that's going to make sure that healthcare assistants, what some call personal support workers, are getting a fair wage, making sure that we work in partnership, that the people who keep our hospitals and our long-term care facilities and assisted care facilities going, as well as an essential agreement on pharmacare, making sure that every person in British Columbia has access to the contraceptives they need, has access to the diabetes medication they need, and yes, to menopause hormone treatment, Mr. Speaker. These are huge things for our health system.
Dude, get a woman up there to talk about that stuff. Like, it's just so bizarre.
The Honourable Member from Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals' failure to fund services through Jordan's Principle is endangering First Nations youth. In fact, in Winnipeg, Spirit Horse Action Therapy is owed almost $400,000. And the First Nations Child and Family Caring Society says this government's neglect is putting kids at risk. When will the Liberals respect their legal obligations to Jordan's Principle and ensure the health and safety of First Nations youth?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister for...
Mr. Speaker, I'm so proud to be part of a government that puts Indigenous children first.
You can tell how proud she is by her face.
After a decade of neglect with the previous Conservative government, ignoring their needs, leading to historic lawsuits, and of course the compensation required to make up for such a terrible omission. And we are making it right, Mr. Speaker. We're ensuring that no First Nations child goes without the care they deserve.
It's question period. The Honourable Member from Saanich, Gulf Islands.
Thank you. I have a question.
Lizzie Dizzy.
Minister. North
Or
Pole
Dizzy Lizzie.
is setting up on the contaminated lands of a previous place. There are jurisdictional impacts. Thousands of people signed a petition for a federal assessment. The mayors of Saint-Basile and McMasterville are wondering what the repercussions of this North Vault plant will be. Will the minister use his powers to order an environmental impact assessment to study the impact of the North Vault plant in Quebec? The Honourable Environment and Climate Change Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the member for Saanich Gulf Islands for her question. The Canada Impact Assessment Agency received a request for an impact assessment, so the impact assessment study is underway. The agency will make its recommendations in the upcoming weeks. The leader of the Green Party and I and many others in Canada are confused, though, about the NDP's position on carbon pricing. I did some door-to-door in La Salle et Marverdun over the weekend, and so many people told me that they don't understand the NDP's new stance because it would be harmful to the whole country.
To point of order, I wish to draw the attention of members.
Nah, we don't care.
No,
No, we did that once! And I did not see that coming. Hell no, we ain't doing that again. Folks, that is the end of question period. First day back in session. Wow, that reunion was very fiery. It was awesome. We got a new channel member here and super chat donor of the day, Shauna, in the chat saying, quote of the day, "Hard things are hard," by Justin Trudeau. And, you know, when he said that, he had a little bit of jag meat on his lips. You know what I'm saying? Folks, thank you so much for participating in this live stream. Holy smokes. Before question period even began, I think we had 1,000 or 2,000 likes on the stream. We're ending the stream with over 5,000 concurrent viewers. I think over 50,000 people have tuned in, or 60,000 people as of right now. That's without the replay going. Absolutely insane. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope if you haven't yet already that you smash that like button and that you subscribe to the channel. Hit that little bell notification too when you're subscribed so you can be notified of upcoming live streams. We're going to do this again tomorrow and the day after, and I look forward to seeing all of you back here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this beautiful live stream here. I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys had a lot of fun. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. See you guys on the playing field. And you're going to see, if you haven't, seen all the highlights of this question period, don't worry. I got you covered, as I always do. So tune into MSB, the main channel here, in probably about 20 minutes or something, and I'll have something ready for you guys. Peace and love, everybody. Thank you so much. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.